Part 4, Saviors of the Multiverse. Chapter 10, Space Invaders. After the Xaryxian Empire attacked their world, the characters journeyed to Doomspace and formed a coalition. With a fleet of ships accompanying them, they set out for Xaryxis space, encountering a red dragon and its rider along the way. Dagaz, a Githyanki knight, is hunting mind flayers in the astral sea. Dagaz and her dragon mount fight only in self-defense and are, at best, a fleeting distraction. The real trouble begins when the characters enter Xaryxis space and make their way to the imperial citadel of the Xaryxian Empire, which is protected by a fleet of star moths. Knight of Tunarat? A lawful evil Githyanki knight named Dagaz rides a male young red dragon. These creatures begin the encounter 500 feet from the character's ship. Dagaz and the dragon are initially indifferent toward the characters. If the dragon is not attacked right away, it circles the character's ship once as it identifies a safe place to land, then lands gently on the deck. Dagaz casts tongues on herself and addresses the characters moments later. The armored knight lifts the visor of her helm, revealing the stern visage of a Githyanki. "I am Dagaz, a knight of Tunarat," she says in a haughty tone. "By order of Flakit the Undying, Queen of the Astral Sea, I declare that you are guilty of the crime of trespassing. As your punishment, it is my solemn duty to decapitate your captain. So, which one of you dung-eaters commands this barge?" After a beat, Dagaz smiles and adds, "A bad joke on my part. I wish you swift passage through Her Majesty's realm. My dragon and I are hunting mind flayers. Have you seen any?" If the characters attack the knight or the dragon retaliates by burning their ship with its breath weapon. If she takes any damage, Dagaz uses Misty Step to board the vessel and goes after whoever is responsible. If the characters refrain from combat and inform Dagaz that they've encountered no mind flayers, she takes them at their word and bids them a safe journey to wherever they're going. If the characters inform Dagaz of their destination, she tosses one of them a vial containing oil of sharpness and says, "Give the Xaryxian Empire my regards." She and the dragon then fly away. Arrival in Xaryxis space. When the characters enter Xaryxis space, read. You emerge from the silver haze of the astral sea and enter a wild space system illuminated by a white star. Using the wild space orrery, the characters can plot a course to the imperial citadel of the Xaryxian Empire, which is connected to Xaryxis by a beam of light 300 million miles long. The characters are 100 million miles, 1 day's travel by spell-jamming ship, from the imperial citadel when their fleet enters Xaryxis space. If the characters no longer have the wild space orrery, they can fly toward the star till they see the beam of light and follow it to the imperial citadel. For a map of Xaryxis space and more information about this wild space system, see the Xaryxis space section immediately following this chapter. Attacking the citadel. When the characters come within 1 mile of the imperial citadel, read. Ahead, you see an elegant, crystal-spired city built on the back of an asteroid shaped like a moth, with shipyards sprouting from its wings. Atop the moth's head stands a magnificent temple. A beam of light stretches from a crystal atop the temple toward the bright white star, Xaryxis. An armada of crystal-winged ships patrols the region between your fleet and the citadel. The closest enemy ship is about 1,000 feet away. The Xaryxian armada is not expecting an attack. Allow the characters to decide whether they want to open the engagement at range or close to boarding distance. In either case, the Xaryxian ships are surprised at the beginning of combat. The Xaryxian Armada. The enemy armada consists of 30 star moths, each one crewed by an astral elf honor guard, who serves as the captain, an astral elf star priest, who serves as the ship's spelljammer, and 11 astral elf warriors. The armada's flagship, the Xaryxia, also carries an astral elf commander named Vale, who commands the entire fleet. See Boo's Astral Menagerie for the Astral Elves stat blocks. When the two fleets meet in battle, the Xaryxia singles out the character's ship while the rest of the armada engages the other ships in the character's fleet. The Xaryxia and the character's ship are 1,000 feet apart at the start of the encounter. Given the number of ships and combatants on both sides, it is impractical to track everyone's movements and actions. Instead, narrow the focus of the conflict to the character's ship and the Xaryxia. In between actions, you can narrate glimpses of what's going on in the larger battle, for example, stray ballista bolts whizzing past the character's ship or an Ortuk lamprey ship clamping onto a passing star moth. Although the Xaryxian ships are united in their determination to defend the Imperial Citadel, the crews have different political loyalties, as discussed in the Loyalty to Zidali or Zeleth. Sidebar. Loyalty to Zidali or Zeleth? The crew of the Xaryxia is loyal to Prince Zeleth, but not all ships in the Xaryxian armada share that loyalty. To determine the political leanings of another Star Moth's crew, roll a d6. On a roll of 1 to 3, the crew is loyal to Zeleth. On a roll of 4 to 6, the crew is loyal to Zidali. Regardless of a crew's loyalty, no ship in the Xaryxian armada can be used to attack another Xaryxian vessel unless it has been commandeered by an enemy. A character who shows Zidali's ring of shooting stars to one or more crew members of a ship loyal to Zidali can, with a successful DC 15 Charisma Persuasion check, improve the attitude of that crew, changing it from hostile to indifferent, by claiming to be acting on Zidali's behalf. Zidali's ring looks no different from her brother's, but a successful check is enough to convince the crew that the ring was entrusted to the characters by the princess. An indifferent crew breaks off its attack on the character's ship but won't aid the characters in any other way. Battle losses. Each round on initiative counts 0. The Doomspace Coalition and the Xaryxian Armada each lose one ship and its crew, in addition to any ships and crews defeated by the characters. Keep track of how many ships are left in the battle at the start of each round. Here there be dragons. 7 young solar dragons, Cebu's astral menagerie, born in the fiery heart of Xaryxis, fly around the beam of light that extends between the Imperial Citadel to the star. After noticing the battle, they join the fray, arriving just as the characters finish dealing with Commander Vale's flagship. 7 dragons with multicolored scales and gaseous wings slither through wild space with their mouths agape like hungry serpents. 2 of them break off from the others and head toward your ship. 2 of the 7 solar dragons fly toward the party's vessel while the remaining dragons harry other ships in the coalition fleet or scour the wrecks for treasure. The 2 dragons are 1,000 feet from the character's ship when they are spotted. Both dragons close the distance. One targets characters while the other targets the ship and its weapons. If either dragon is reduced to 50 hit points or fewer, it flees. The dragons also break off their assault if a character stands on the deck of their ship and brandishes Zidali's ring of shooting stars. The dragons have been trained since birth not to harm anyone bearing such a ring. Final approach. Even if the characters survive the Xaryxia and the 2 solar dragons, it becomes obvious that the rest of their fleet is doomed. In response, they can fight on, surrender, or make a break for the Citadel. If the characters surrender to the astral elves or are defeated, read. You watch as your allies lay down their arms and surrender. Now prisoners of the Xaryxian Empire, you are taken to the Imperial Citadel to face justice. Maybe this was your plan for getting into the Citadel all along. Maybe not. Either way, all is not lost. If the characters avoid capture and make a break for the Citadel, read the following text instead. The Imperial Citadel looms large, its crystal spires reflecting the light of Xaryxis. It is here, in the heart of the Xaryxian Empire, that you will decide the fate of your world. Here ends Chapter 10. Wild Space System, Xaryxis Space. Part 4 of the adventure takes place in a wild space system under the control of the Xaryxian Empire. Xaryxis Space in a nutshell. Xaryxis is a white-hot star that is both the literal and figurative heart of the Astral Elves' empire. The Astral Elves discovered how to harness the star's power, using it to fuel their magic. When, after thousands of years of exploitation, Xaryxis' light began to dim, the Astral Elves began harvesting astral seeds from the star to tap the energy of other celestial bodies and use it to replenish the strength of their star. Xaryxis Space is a small wild space system, consisting only of its central star and 3 natural satellites, plus a floating citadel constructed by the Astral Elves of the Xaryxian Empire, who are the system's primary inhabitants. The Xaryxis Space table and the accompanying diagram provide an overview of this system. Xaryxis Space. Planet or structure type distance to outer edge of system. Bear an irregular Earth body 600 million miles, 6 days travel Rivia spherical Earth body 500 million miles, 5 days travel Zarinder spherical Earth body with 1 moon, Isix, 400 million miles, 4 days travel Imperial Citadel City in space 400 million miles, 4 days travel locations in Xaryxis Space. The following locations are depicted on the map of Xaryxis Space. Xaryxis Space. Bear This rocky, misshapen world once supported life, but its ecosystem was wiped out when it became the astral elves' first testing ground for their newly harvested astral seeds. Cracked and barren, this planet is now little more than a cinder. Rivas. Another rocky world, Rivas escaped Verdurin's fate because of its rich platinum deposits, which the astral elves mine. Although it appears desolate on the surface, Rivas bustles with activity below ground, where umber hulks, purple worms, and other burrowing creatures make their lairs. Xarinder. Xarinder is a lush, green planet that teems with life. The flora of the world grow to extraordinary size thanks to the light of Xaryxis, and many of the planet's most formidable creatures are various kinds of intelligent plants. Most of Xarinder's elf population left long ago to be closer to their gods on the astral plane, but the planet still has a few settlements that cultivate and harvest the crystal leaf trees used in the construction of star moths. Imperial Citadel. The Imperial Citadel is the administrative heart of the Xaryxian Empire and is described more fully in the Citadel Overview section. Citadel Overview. The Imperial Citadel is the seat of the Imperial family, which includes Emperor Zavin and his heirs, Princess Zidali and Prince Zelith. The Citadel is a mile-wide, floating platform of hewn stone shaped in the form of a moth. See the accompanying map for the Citadel's layout. The Citadel, which has its own air envelope and gravity plane, is home to approximately 10,000 people, most of them astral elves. The few non-elves are diplomatic envoys to the court, traders, and skilled crafters whose work is esteemed by the emperor. The Imperial Guard, which provides security within the palace and throughout the citadel, is composed of 150 astral elf warriors and 30 astral elf honor guards, Cebu's astral menagerie, of various alignments, with half that number on duty at any given time. No structures are built on the underside of the citadel, which is dotted with natural rocky protrusions. On the top side, stone walls 20 feet thick and 40 feet high control access to the gardens, the Imperial Palace, the Great Orrery, and the docks. 60-foot tall stone towers built into the walls are topped with ballistae and mangonels. Imperial Citadel. Regions. The citadel is made up of the following regions. Common docks. These docks are used by ships belonging to tradespeople, visitors, private citizens, and mercenaries. Much of the traffic at the common docks consists of cargo vessels delivering food and other supplies. Gardens. The citadel's gardens are trimmed and cultivated to represent an idyllic vision of Xarinder's forests. The greenery replenishes the citadel's air envelope and serves as a bucolic refuge. Discreet conversation away from the prying eyes of the court often takes place here. Great Orrery. The Great Orrery is the center of scholarship in the citadel. Enclosed by high walls, the facility is built around a gigantic orrery of Xaryxis base. This magical and mechanical contraption features levitating models of the system's planets and moons, all orbiting a brightly glowing crystal orb that represents Xaryxis. A lawful evil, astral elf archmage named Magister Xaryxis is here day and night, studying wild space systems that have been surveyed by astral elf explorers and looking for new worlds that can be exploited to keep Xaryxis burning bright. A chamber beneath the Great Orrery contains a ring of 12 spell-jamming helms joined together by crystal filaments. Xaryxis and her fellow mages use these spell-jamming helms to move the citadel across wild space and the astral sea in accordance with the wishes of the Emperor. All 12 helms are required to propel the citadel, which has a flying speed of 50 feet, 5.5 miles per hour. High Quarter. This region is where the palace's courtiers and trusted servants maintain their residences. A handful of shops and other establishments that cater to members of the court are also located here. Imperial Docks. Only ships belonging to the Imperial family, which includes the Imperial Navy as well as an assortment of pleasure craft, are allowed to dock here. Guards patrol the Imperial Docks constantly. Imperial Palace. From the upper floors of this stone and crystal palace, the ruling family has a commanding view of the vista that stretches out below. Including courtiers, guards, and servants, over 1,000 people are in the palace at any time. Low Quarter. The citadel's laborers and servants have dwellings in the low quarter. Here, too, are relatively cheap lodgings for visitors. Military Quarter. Members of the Imperial Navy and the Imperial Guard maintain residences in the military quarter. Most members of the Guard can be found here when they are not on duty. Temple of Light. The Temple of Light is where the light of Xaryxis is harnessed for the astral elves' use. Atop the temple is a giant crystal that receives and focuses the star's light and channels that energy into a pool in the center of the temple called the astral font, which powers the Empire's most potent magic. Andavir, a lawful neutral astral elf star priest, Cebu's astral menagerie, oversees the temple. More information about the temple is presented in Chapter 11. Trade Quarter. Most of the Citadel's merchants and crafters live and work in the Trade Quarter. Much of the Citadel's commerce takes place here, making it the liveliest area of the city. Well-appointed lodgings are also available for visitors with coin to spare. Chapter 11, Crowning Moment. Determined to save their world, the characters traveled to Xaryxis base with a fleet of ships at their command. But nothing could have prepared them for the armada of enemy ships and the host of solar dragons guarding the magnificent citadel of the Xaryxian Empire. Though the battle was lost, hope remains. The characters' arrival at the Imperial Citadel coincides with the funeral of Emperor Xavan. When Zidali challenges her brother's claim to the throne and names the characters as her champions, the heroes must do battle with Azodar, Cebu's astral menagerie, to decide who will rule as the next emperor. Arrival at the Citadel. When the characters approach the Imperial Citadel, either as prisoners or in their own ship, read. As your ship draws closer to the Citadel, you can make out thousands of people in the streets. The crowds surround the temple at the Citadel's peak. By comparison, the two docking platforms at the tail end of the Citadel seem quiet. Characters who have been taken prisoner by the astral elves are stripped of all visible weapons, but they are allowed to keep their armor and other gear. The same is true for any non-player characters who are with them. A character can conceal a light weapon on their person by succeeding on a DC 17 dexterity, sleight of hand, check. Prisoners are delivered to the Imperial docks, where they are met by 6 lawful neutral astral elf warriors and a lawful neutral astral elf honor guard named Koreleth, Cebu's astral menagerie for their stat blocks, all of whom are loyal to Princess Zidali. Stepping onto a landing, you are met by 7 armored figures, their faces hidden behind filigreed visors. Their leader takes a step forward and says, "I'm Commander Koreleth. My orders are to deliver you to the Temple of Light to face the Emperor's justice." The commander then orders your captors to return your weapons to you. Princess Zidali sends her regards. Weapons confiscated from the characters and their allies are promptly returned to them, after which Koreleth's squad leads the group through the streets of the Citadel to the Temple of Light. If the characters flee from their escort, Koreleth's squad doesn't pursue, per Zidali's instructions. On the way to the temple, Koreleth gives honest answers to any questions the characters might have. The commander imparts the following information. Following the death of Emperor Xavan, Prince Silith has declared that his coronation will take place after the emperor's funeral. Princess Zidali is being forced to attend her brother's coronation, even though it is the wish of many to see Zidali and Zelith coronated jointly, in accordance with their father's wishes. If he becomes emperor, Zelith will have the characters executed without a trial. Infiltrating the Citadel. If the characters arrive at the Citadel in their own ship, they can tell from a distance that the Imperial docks are guarded, but the common docks are not. Landing at the common docks. If they land at the common docks, the characters can disembark and enter the city without being seen by guards. Landing at the Imperial docks. If the characters land at the Imperial docks or try to enter the Citadel by any other method, such as rappelling down on ropes over the middle of the city, they are immediately confronted by Commander Koreleth's squad, see above, which tries to capture them and escort them to the Temple of Light. Exploring the city. Characters who avoid or escape the attention of their escorts can move about the Citadel as they see fit. Most of the city's inhabitants are too preoccupied with the Emperor's funeral and Prince Zelith's imminent coronation to take notice of the party. Any locals the characters talk to quickly turn the conversation to this topic, encouraging the party to get to the temple quickly before all the best vantage points are taken. The funeral for Emperor Xavan is a lengthy ceremony, which provides the characters with an opportunity to take a short rest before the final showdown in the Temple of Light. Temple of Light. The interior of the Temple of Light is large enough to accommodate dozens of people, while hundreds more gather outside. Temple of Light. Entering the temple. As the characters enter the temple, read. Pushing your way into the temple through the crowd of onlookers, you see an elf priest presiding over the figure of the late emperor, whose body floats in an azure pool with a brilliant beam of light penetrating it from above. Flanking the priest are Prince Zelith and Princess Xadali. The prince is arrayed in regal splendor, his expression one of exultation, while Xadali stands stiffly, regarding her brother with a look of utter loathing. Silence fills the temple as the priest raises his arms and the emperor's body, shrouded in light, rises into the beam and disappears. The emperor has ascended. The priest announces. His spirit is one with the light of Xaryxis. As his firstborn heirs, Prince Zelith and Princess Xadali are both in line to rule, but Princess Xadali stands accused of treason. Are there any who would defend her claim? Prince Zelith is a chaotic evil astral elf aristocrat with a ring of shooting stars. Princess Xadali is a chaotic neutral astral elf aristocrat. If Xadali died previously, the figure standing here is a clone, created using a clone spell. Also present is Ondavir, a lawful neutral astral elf star priest, who is overseeing Emperor Zavin's ascension. Watching from the perimeter of the room are 12 astral elf honor guards of various alignments. See Boo's Astral Menagerie for the astral elves stat blocks. If the characters don't speak up, Xadali tries to mount her own defense, accusing her brother of trying to get rid of her and then fabricating the story of her sedition. It is obvious her words do not move the crowd, however. When Zelith then tells of finding her engaged in a conspiracy to overthrow him, the crowd boos Xadali and calls for Zelith to be crowned emperor. Xadali, in desperation, demands a chance to prove her innocence in a trial by combat, a request that Zelith mocks. Only someone who bears one of the starlight rings can challenge for the right to rule, says the prince. Where is your ring, dear sister? If she has entrusted her ring of shooting stars to the characters, Xadali points in their direction, causing all eyes in the temple to fall upon them. If the characters don't have the ring or refuse to present it, Xadali loses her claim to the throne. Zelith laughs, after which Ondavir declares, Zelith is the rightful heir. Skip ahead to the All Hail Emperor Zelith section. Defending Xadali. If the characters show that they have Xadali's ring, they are entitled to defend the princess's claim to the throne. Prince Zelith is irritated and tries to refute their arguments. You can run this scenario as a tense series of verbal thrusts and parries, with Xadali prompting the characters as needed to recount the various episodes of their mission and their grievances against the Xaryxian Empire, while Zelith attempts to twist every point against them. Resolve this debate by having one of the characters, whichever one is leading the argument in favor of Xadali's claim to the throne, make a DC 20 Charisma Persuasion check. If another skill seems more appropriate, use that skill instead. If the character's argument is genuinely persuasive or if other characters contribute to the argument, the check is made with advantage. If the check succeeds, the crowd is swayed in Xadali's favor. If the check fails, the crowd is not swayed, which pleases Zelith. If the characters fail to convince the crowd of Xadali's innocence, Xadali resorts to challenging her brother to a trial by combat. If the characters turn the crowd's opinion against the prince, it is instead Zelith who, seeing his status in danger, challenges Xadali to combat. In either case, proceed to the trial by combat section. If the characters attack Zelith or otherwise try to rescue Xadali by force, they find themselves up against overwhelming odds. Zelith uses Starlight Step and Fly to evade their attacks, while the Imperial Guards do their best to subdue and apprehend the characters. If the characters are captured, Zelith promises to have them executed as soon as the coronation is over. In the unlikely event that the party defeats Zelith or drives him off, skip ahead to the All Hail Emperor Xadali section. Astral Font. The astral font is a 40-foot diameter, 2-foot deep pool of glowing, pale liquid fed by a 10-foot diameter beam of harmless blue light, which streams down from an aperture in the ceiling 175 feet above. The astral font has the following magical properties. Star Beam. A creature that starts its turn in the beam of light is magically teleported to the radiant core of Xaryxis, along with anything it is wearing or carrying. The Zodar is immune to this effect. A creature that enters the star or starts its turn there takes 132, 24d10, radiant damage. Starlight Spellcasting. Water removed from the astral font glows faintly for 24 hours, shedding dim light in a 5-foot radius. A spellcaster who quaffs an ounce or more of the glowing water must make a DC 16 Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 24, 7d6, psychic damage. On a successful save, The creature gains the ability to cast one spell of their choice from the cleric spell list or the wizard spell list. The chosen spell, which must be of 7th level or lower, uses the caster's spellcasting ability and requires no material components. Once the spell is cast, it fades from memory. A creature can gain only one such spell at a time and can't benefit from drinking the pool's water more than once every 24 hours. Trial by combat. Xaryxis asks the characters to serve as her champions. If the characters accept, read. Xaryxis sneers. Very well, sister, since you won't face me yourself, I, too, name a champion. Bring forth the Xodar. The crowd gives out a collective gasp as the guards part ranks to make way for a creature clad head to toe in a suit of obsidian armor. As it floats toward you, you realize the armor is the creature. The priest turns to face you. The Xodar has served the imperial family since the dawn of the empire. Its knowledge is vast, and its will is absolute. To the death. The characters must fight the Xodar, see Boo's Astral Menagerie, on their own. See Running the Xodar below for more information about this creature. The characters win the trial by combat if they reduce the Xodar to 0 hit points. The Xodar wins the battle if all the characters are at 0 hit points at the start of the Xodar's turn or if the characters who are still standing concede defeat. The characters forfeit the match if any of them leaves the temple. Xaryxis, Xaryxis, and Andavir move to the sidelines for their own safety, protected by royal guards. The audience also moves as far back as they can while preserving their front row views of the battle. Xaryxis' favor. If the characters sway the crowd in favor of Princess Xaryxis, the princess leads the crowd in a chant before the battle begins. This uplifting tribute grants 20 temporary hit points to each of her champions. Running the Xodar. The Xodar tries to knock characters unconscious instead of killing them. A character reduced to 0 hit points by the Xodar is stable at 0 hit points. The Xodar saves its wish spell for the next chapter. If the Xodar is reduced to 0 hit points, it slumps in place, apparently inert. Aftermath. This chapter's cliffhanger ending depends on who wins the trial by combat. All hail Emperor Xaryxis. If the characters are defeated by the Xodar, as described earlier in the chapter, or fail to come to Xaryxis' defense, read. The crowd chants, All hail Emperor Xaryxis. Xaryxis glowers at you. Pathetic fools. Hurling yourselves into the void without the slightest inkling of who or what is out here. If you knew anything about the true nature of wild space, anything at all, you would have hidden from it in terror. Pity I can't destroy your world more than once. Here ends Chapter 11. All hail Emperor Xaryxis. If the characters are triumphant, read. The priest's voice rings throughout the temple. The Xodar is defeated. All hail Emperor Xaryxis. Xaryxis lets out a strangled cry as his sister steps toward you, a wide smile on her face. My ring, if you please. If the characters return Xaryxis' ring of shooting stars, she slides it onto her finger, clenches her fist, and gazes at the ring lovingly. If the characters refuse to return her ring or claim not to have it, she frowns and says, no matter. Whether or not Xaryxis gets her ring back, she knows the character's mission poses a threat to Xaryxis space, as explained in the next chapter, and concludes that the characters have outlived their usefulness. Read. As Emperor, I must reward my champions for this triumph. Abruptly, Xaryxis' smile turns into a sneer. Guards, seize them. Here ends Chapter 11. Chapter 12, Light of Xaryxis. The Xaryxian Empire bombarded the character's world with astral seeds, which sprouted into crystal vines that began harvesting the planet's energy. Determined to save their world, the characters fought their way to the Imperial Citadel orbiting Xaryxis, where the next emperor of the Xaryxian Empire was declared. Regardless of which sibling, Xaryxis or Xaryxis, ascends to the Xaryxian throne, the new emperor orders the execution of the characters. Before that can happen, the Xodar intervenes on the party's behalf, using its wish spell to restore the characters to full health. Dying Wish. If the Xodar was reduced to 0 hit points in the previous chapter's trial by combat, it regains 1 hit point now. At the same time, any unconscious characters regain 1 hit point and wake up. If the characters did not engage in the trial by combat, the Xodar floats into view immediately after either Xaryxis or Xaryxis is hailed as the new emperor. Unknown to Xaryxis or Xaryxis, the Zodar was tasked by a previous emperor to help bring about the empire's destruction if ever someone of corrupt heart ascended to the throne. The Zodar believes that time has finally come. Read the following. A resounding, supernal voice issues from the Zodar, astonishing everyone. Take the ring of stars into the heart of the star where it was forged, and your world will be saved. At this pronouncement, golden light spills from the Zodar's eyes and washes over you. The Zodar then crumbles into dust. As a result of the Zodar's wish, the characters regain all their hit points. Each character also receives the benefit of a greater restoration spell. Seeing the characters invigorated in this way causes all the astral elves in the Temple of Light, including Xelith and Zidali, to wonder if the gods have forsaken them. Why else, as they see it, would the Zodar, which has defended the royal family for eons, bestow such a gift on the Empire's enemies? The Zodar's pronouncement tells the characters what they must do to save their world: hurl Xelith's or Zidali's ring of shooting stars into the heart of Xaryxis. Doing so not only destroys the star and everything else in Xaryxis space but also kills off the crystal vines threatening the character's world. Depending on how the previous chapter played out, the characters might have Zidali's ring in their possession. If not, they will need to acquire that ring or obtain its twin, which is worn by Xelith. Obtaining a ring. Andavir knows what will happen if the characters do as the Zodar commands and makes these consequences known to everyone within earshot. Hurling a royal ring into the heart of Xaryxis will destroy not only the star but everything in this system. Andavir orders the audience to evacuate the Temple of Light. The priest leads the exodus, leaving the characters and their allies alone with Xelith, Zidali, and the siblings' royal guards. Xelith and Zidali are astral elf aristocrats, and at least Xelith has his ring of shooting stars. 12 astral elf honor guards, Cebu's astral menagerie for their stat blocks, stand ready to defend whichever sibling was named emperor in the previous chapter. Whichever sibling was declared emperor in the previous chapter orders the guards to attack the characters, using the distraction to try to summon a solar dragon before joining the fray. Meanwhile, the other sibling casts fly and tries to flee the temple. Life or death. When the characters have at least one ring of shooting stars in their custody, they must decide whether to destroy Xaryxis, to save their world and others like it, or to spare it, thus sealing their world's doom. If the characters seek the counsel of allies, use the following information to guide those conversations. Commodore Crux. The Gif is adamant that Xaryxis be destroyed. He reminds the characters of the many worlds the Xaryxian Empire has wiped out of existence. Flinch. The Hadozi recommends mercy for the astral elves. Flinch explains that his concern is not for the people of Xaryxis space but for the characters, because he has seen how the desire for revenge can bring great souls low, a remark that shames Crux into silence. Grimesode Garganhale. Grimesode heartily endorses the destruction of Xaryxis, insisting that the astral elves have that and worse coming to them. Starbuff. The destruction of Xaryxis would end the lives of all the creatures in Xaryxis space, an incalculable loss, in Starbuff's estimation. Topola. If blowing up the star is what it takes to save the character's world, then Topola is all for it. She also observes that the opportunity to witness the death of a star is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Warwick Blastomov. Warwick reminds the characters that good soldiers have fought and died to give the characters this chance at saving their world. He hopes they'll follow through. Fate of the Imperial Citadel. Magister Xaryxis and the mages of the Great Orrery have the means to move the Imperial Citadel out of Xaryxis space and into the Astral Sea, but not the authority. Magister Xaryxis, a stickler for protocol, declares that the Imperial Citadel won't leave Xaryxis space without a command from the Emperor. Neither Xelith nor Zidali will give this order, as it would mean accepting defeat. No coming back. Xaryxis explodes. To destroy Xaryxis, someone bearing Xelith's or Zidali's ring of shooting stars must travel into the heart of the star, either by ship, a 3-day voyage, or via the astral font's light beam. See Chapter 11. It is, everyone realizes, a journey from which there is no coming back. If no characters volunteer for this mission, Grimesode Garganhale does so. If the characters allow Grimesode to sacrifice himself, he says, "I hope you all appreciate the irony of a vampirate flying into the sun." He then entrusts his crawling claw to Topola, saying, "Let it never be said that Grimesode Garganhale failed to give a lovely lady a hand." Commodore Crux is reluctant to entrust the ring of shooting stars to the vampirate. A character must succeed on a DC 15 Charisma, Persuasion, check to convince Crux to let Garganhale have the ring and make this doomsday trip. Once he has the ring, Garganhale enters the astral font's light beam. Moments later, he disappears and is gone forever. If a character enters the heart of Xaryxis, describe their final moments as follows. Unfettered radiance tears through your flesh as you are pulled into the star's blinding core. Death of a star. When Xaryxis is destroyed, read. The star flares, becoming 1,000 times brighter. Moments later, it is gone. Shock waves of multicolored energy expand outward from the collapsed star, threatening all in their path. The shock waves destroy everything in Xaryxis space but don't extend into the astral sea. The characters and their NPC allies have enough time to board a ship and use its spell-jamming helm to reach the astral sea before the shock waves can catch up with them. Conclusion. The character's return voyage can be as eventful or uneventful as you like. As for the character's world, its fate is inexorably bound with the fate of Xaryxis. Xaryxis is spared. If Xaryxis was not destroyed, the characters return home to find their world on the brink of annihilation. As the planet begins to fracture, the characters might decide to help evacuate and resettle survivors on the other worlds of their system. Xaryxis is destroyed. The destruction of Xaryxis causes the crystal vines to crumble. The heroes have saved their world. If Xaryxis was destroyed, the characters return home to find that the crystal vines that were choking their world have shattered and collapsed. Among the world's inhabitants, shock at the sudden reprieve has given way to relief and jubilation. The destruction of Xaryxis forces what's left of the Xaryxian Empire to take refuge in the Astral Sea, where the Astral Elves still have numerous ships and strongholds. Xelith and Zedali had one clone apiece, making it likely that at least one sibling will survive the adventure with a hunger for revenge. Further adventures. This section provides a couple suggestions for how you can continue this campaign. Beyond the Eye of Doom. Is the Eye of Doom in Doom Space a gateway to a new wild space system? One or more NPCs encourage the characters to mount an expedition to discover what lies on the other side of the vortex. Back to Brul. If the characters return to the Rock of Brul, tales of their heroism travel quickly to the Palace of Starhaven, where the characters are invited to meet Prince Andrew. Perhaps the Brailian monarch has a quest for them. The end?